Good news, you're here just in time. Here's another Laneway Talks.
G'day, Rob, and welcome to another episode of Laneway Talks. How are you?
I'm good, Vince. G'day. How you going?
Oh, I'm pretty good. Today I thought we would go over a topic we've discussed a few times in the last few episodes, and that is festivals and how they're dropping off, and there's all kinds of issues with funding that are coming up in the press. So it's a good topic to discuss.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
I'd like to start off by saying there's some conflicting views, and all the governments are getting involved, seems to be, around the country, whether it be federal or state, and everybody's throwing money at it. We always know, Rob, don't we, that if you've ever gone for funding from government agencies, the creative arts agencies, it's like a mind-bending experience if you could ever get anywhere, and it seems to be who you know, not what you know. And
yes, I've done several.
Yeah, and we gave up many, many years ago because we got nowhere, in the early days of Laneway Music and trying to get some support. So there's the one that says, well, we should fund these festivals or help fund them because they are dropping off at a rate of knots. And as we know, a lot of them are even not counselling a year before. So
who's saying
that? Who's saying we should fund them?
Yes.
Well, firstly, the government is saying that, and then we're getting people like the Greens involved. And Sarah Hanson-Young, she's heading up the Senate inquiry. Don't you love it? Here you go. Here's another waste of money, a complete waste of money. A Senate inquiry into national cultural policy, which she chaired. She chairs it, so she gets some extra money, I would suspect, for doing that. Senate inquiry into national cultural policy. You love every bit about all this bureaucracy, and they've got to have a whole team of people in that room. They've got to invite people there, and she's at the head. So she fired off on the day of Splendor's cancellation. The Greens fired off a letter to the government. Now, this will be to the federal, I would suspect, that read in part, we need urgent funding to support festivals and the arts through the cost of living crisis and to use the May budget to address this. Now, I want to put that up against someone who I've got a lot of respect for, and that's the Regurgitators manager, Paul Curtis, who said he was stunned and disappointed on that letter from the Greens. He asked why it was going to bat for festivals which are majority owned by multi-billion-dollar overseas concerns. It was disappointing because they were making a gut reaction. Oh, we have to save the music industry without fully understanding the full issues at hand. He is very much in favour of supporting grassroots venues and artists, and trying to nurture them to get up there. What other people have said, Rob, also is that since the pandemic and there's been so much support for festivals and the creative arts, because, they were slammed, of course. Nobody, we're not so worried about anybody else. They were slammed, is that, artists were getting paid astronomical amounts or way above what they should have been paid because there was all this funding coming. Firstly, those artists will find it very difficult now to move back down to what they should have been paid. So say, for example, an artist for a festival got paid $100,000. I know all the figures, but I can't say here, okay, because they're all in confidence.
That's a hypothetical $100,000?
Yeah, hypothetical. $100,000, and that artist band or whatever is really only worth probably about $30,000. And I'm being serious, about $30,000. What could they earn to go out to a venue and pull a crowd in? But they're getting paid $100,000, and there's some much bigger figures than that. The problem for them is then they set that as the standard in what they want, and they're never going to achieve it unless there's government funding. And if festivals do pay it further, moving down the track, the festival becomes unprofitable because they're paying inflated artist costs. You see where I'm going, don't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And the other one was that on a pure economics basis, if you're funding these festivals, which shouldn't have probably been going ahead anyway, or they got bad management, they're paying everybody more money because you're fighting for the road crews, you're fighting for the lighting technicians, you're fighting for everybody concerned, so you're going to pay more money. So we've now inflated their costs or their charges, supply costs. And so now the festival's becoming more unprofitable. How do they go back to so if you're paying someone $75 an hour for the festival, how do you bring it back down to the normal cost of $35 an hour? Well, next year, well, you don't because they want $75, and that's what I used to be paid. Yeah. And if there's too many festivals, the overcapacity of those is stifling the supply cost, which is all the workers that work on those festivals, because there's only a finite amount of experienced people. You're bidding up the cost. It's a purely supply and demand economics, and therefore you bid up their prices, and the costs feed through, and the festival becomes unprofitable. So we've got a lot of this going on. I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Rob?
I think I've had this discussion with different boards and people, Music Teachers Association and the South Australian Music Hall of Fame people. It comes back when you say about Hanson Young, her portfolio is not relevant to the entertainment industry and the way we know it. And I've said, that you've got some of the greatest minds. I mean, you were talking about Paul Curtis, yourself, and there's a lot of artists out there that haven't got any representation within government. And I think the wrong people with the wrong portfolios are making decisions about our industry. And until that changes, none of this cluster of confusion is ever going to change because you've got the wrong people driving it at the top end of town. You have to change the people that are in government to have a portfolio within the arts, within music, within entertainment, within that business. But because it's a separate business, they've just run it themselves. But I think that we're our own worst enemy because that's a very powerful entity. Why should we have anything to do with the government? Well, who's making the decisions? Not you guys, the government at the end of the day. So that's where the problem, one of the systemic problems is within this whole argument. Those people that have got those portfolios don't have anything to do with the arts or an arts background. I mean, if you look at Hanson Young, we're talking about her, what is her career? She was a bank teller. She worked for Amnesty International.
Oh, really? That is bank teller, Amnesty International. Fantastic. Yeah. Got a lot to do with cultural arts.
She was studying a postgraduate law degree.
Right.
And she was a media advisor. So none of her experience, I mean, that's a great career. Good on her, but she's got nothing to do with the arts. So how is she well informed enough to make those decisions and actually put policies out there we're going to change this when you have no idea of what's going on?
Well, Rob, this week the Victorian government announced $10 million towards, festivals of music. And I really had a chuckle because I thought, well, how will we ever know whether that will be actually paid? We'll never know who paid to.
It's lip service, Vince. It doesn't mean anything. It's just the government trying to react to something to get more votes.
It's, I was talking to someone the other day, and I think it was last year, Desperate Dan Andrews had made a statement that he was going to retrench 5,000. He had to reduce public service here in Victoria because we're a broke state by 5,000. And we were talking about it the other day, and we said, wonder where that ever got to. Has anybody ever audited it? Will we ever know? No, it's as you just said, complete lip service.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And this is the same. How will you ever know that, that any of this money will go there? The comments being made by some commercial people too is that the festivals need to be run on a commercial basis. One of the crackers which we spoke about a couple of weeks ago was the insurance charges. You remember we were talking about the Bendigo Hotel and all that. And I have spoken to someone in the insurance industry who has done the music industry insurance for 30, 40 years. And we had a good discussion about it because I said, it's criminal, isn't it, overcharge? He said it's all complete bullshit. Yep. It is about going back to your professionals in that industry, not to your commercial insurers who have no idea. Yep. So when he says you're seeing figures being inflated tenfold, he said it's because they're going to, use the commercials, double AMIs, or I know not them, but more commercial orientated insurers, not the specialists. And there's only a few specialists in the industry, and they aren't going.
Have you got the names of those people that are the specialists? Because that would probably be a good thing.
Well, no, I'm not willing to say that because I'm not sure whether they'll want to be named, because they have their clients and they know what they can deliver, and they deliver for those clients year in, year out. So there's certain festivals and there's certain live venues that are having no problems at all. They have their clients. So no, I'm not sure I should bring it up, but that was stated out to me very clearly. And then back in these articles at the moment, they're all talking about, well, the insurance is killing them too. Well, whether it be rain insurance or other commercially based clauses in there, well, there'd be no issue in the past. There'll only be an issue if you're talking to the wrong insurer. So we go back to, what people like Paul Curtis are saying, that, hold on a minute, why are we funding these festivals? Let's get to the grassroots. Let's go and, sponsor young bands at small venues. Let's get the new generation of them coming through. Why are we supporting bands being paid overinflated prices, or charges for their services, and everybody else is forgotten about? Because I'm so close to what's going on out there because of my background, and so people are always talking to me, I am taken back by the amount of charges by artists for corporate gigs, festivals, live events which are more corporatised. It's just crazy, Rob. And I don't know how those artists are going to come back down to the normal fees they should be paid. And so it begs the question, should we be supporting the new young acts coming through? Because those old acts need to be pushed along, Go on.
There's so many bullet points and everything you said. I mean, with what I'm doing myself, it's a very big problem to try and overcome. But I've got a gig coming up with 4 of my students' bands. They're new bands doing 3 songs each. We've got our own venue that we've booked over here, and my band will get up and we'll play a few songs. My band over here in Adelaide. But, so those sorts of things that help kids at that level, I think that's very important. We have to do that. And I totally agree with what you're saying. So that's something I'm doing instead of just trying to work it out and talk about it without actually putting anything to action. Have a plan. And I was talking to Ash Robbo this morning from 11 Live Loud Heavy, and he listens to our podcast, which is great. So shout out to Ash there. And he's doing the same thing. They're working on local bands and local bands getting together and putting on and promoting their own shows, giving local fans exclusive listens to pre-mastered songs and new material. Stuff like that is really healthy. I think we need to, as you say, we need to be doing more of that because it's got to come back down once again to, if we don't nurture the younger bands, nothing's going to be there in the future.
Well, look, I think on that level, it's just so important on that lower hanging fruit level, because you get this crazy stuff, figures bandied around like this. The Blues Fest was contributing $70 million to Byron Bay's Shire economy, $143 million to Northern Rivers, $232 million to New South Wales, that all these big figures. Castlemaine State Fair has gone under. All these lower end ones, but these other big ones, they quote these big figures. Who put that together? Where did that come from?
Don't know.
Yeah, you'll never know. They're just quoted figures. They're not quoted from any source. It's just quoted by people. I'd like to know how it was put together and how relevant that is.
There's so much misinformation, and
I think so.
Yeah, that's what it is. They just put it together, and it's not actually based in fact. I think it's made up to make people, once again, a slip service.
Absolutely. So I think that we need to go back to basics and support grassroots, and it even comes from education. I was at my daughter's graduation last night in music and events from Collards. I think their bigger name is College of the Arts or something. Anyway, so I was seeing all those kids coming out of there. Now, out of all those kids coming out of there, some of those, they're never going to see work. Never going to see work in what they graduated in. We need to make sure we realistically can provide a base for those kids coming out of there to actually, to get work in the industry. And that's what is not going to happen, I can assure you, because I've done this my whole life.
Likewise.
So, you see that and you see what they've put in to get there, and then you think, oh, how many of them will actually get a job in specifically what they've been trained in? It will be a letdown for them, and it is because it's so hard. So we need to look at that. I mean, the other thing is your lower end labels too that have a place in all of this, in trying to develop artists and give them some professionalism and guidance on how to firstly get their songs out there properly and on a consistent basis, and then to get to some of these festivals, because your venues, I'm thinking that on a venue basis, they're becoming so picky that you have to do what you're doing over there, and a lot of the very early starter bands that are just doing their first couple of gigs, are going to need to put on events themselves to get people to those shows. I once again was approached to do a Laneway show in the last week, and I said, no, we will not do that yet. We are too busy, because it takes so much time, and to get 4 or 5 of our bands and do a little mini afternoon festival. And we have done a lot of them, but we just said no, not at this stage. But so that pushes it back to a lot of the young bands who need to get out there, find a venue, book the venue, and you've got to have a venue that will actually be resident to actually to talk to them and to go, yeah, look, we can do this. In the old days, it's terrible to say that, isn't it, being 62 myself. In the old days, you used to get venues doing exactly the same thing. They would get you to come and play a gig there, but, and they say, well, you got to give away 50 tickets, because 50 tickets is 50 people who'll drink 50 beers.
That's right. Yeah.
So it was a similar thing. So it's been happening forever and a day. And so we want that to happen just as much now. It is important. Back then I used to think, oh, come on, what do I have to get 50 people? And if there's 4 bands playing, there's potentially 200 people, you see. So, and you used to think at the time, oh, the rat bag venues, but the venue's actually willing to do it. And that's getting you and getting people in there to see you play. And it's usually 4 bands of the same genre. So,
didn't you say something the other week about how many venues have closed around Australia?
Well, they are. I mean, there is stats.
Didn't you? You actually had a number.
I may have, but I haven't got it now on the back of my head. But
3,200 or something.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember. But
I think it just stuck in my head because that's a ridiculous amount of venues closing.
Oh well. If I think about Melbourne, there's a dichotomy. Dichotomy is that there's a change in what venues and where. So the Corner Hotel, which used to be the quintessential live venue for higher end 800, because it holds 880 capacity, 800. Pulling local bands and international lower-end artists, it was the quintessential place to be playing at. And if you played there, that's it. It was a good status symbol. And they're putting on a lot of tribute shows. So they're struggling. But why are they struggling? Is it the management of the venue? It won't be the management, because I know the booker, and he's a really good booker, and they booked the Northcote Social Club. So it's trying to get the quality of the acts. So let's say first quality local acts that can pull 800 people, very difficult. And then...
Are there any local people? 800 people?
Well, for example, if let's use Paul Curtis Regurgitator, if they were to play, I think they would pull at least 500, at least, at least 500. If you had King Gizzard, I think they'd pull 800. If you had Kingswood, they'd pull 800. So there's a few of the bands, and there is some fantastic new young bands coming through.
I mean, we used to play there back in the 80s, but I think, we were more like 300 or 400 that we'd pull at the Central Club more than we used to pack out Bell Street, but that was our end of town. But
well, it was like High Street, Malvern, that one. Anyway, they used to pull, that was 800 too. There was quite a few that had 800, but if you had 300, 400 in there, you actually were doing quite well. Back then, I mean, Paul Kelly and the Dots could fill out a venue, Rose Tattoo could fill out a venue. Stars
yeah, that's funny. The Tats, on the Tats, because I was just seeing here, because we're talking about festivals, and I mentioned about the Slipknot Not Fest Festival.
Yeah.
It didn't sell out in any state. Well, I thought it did.
Really?
It was poorly run. Bands were treated substandard without the Slipknot in the lineup. It made little sense.
Yeah.
And this is just from a punted, from Ash saying, the reason why festivals in Australia are simply failing is our economy.
Yeah.
And there's way too many shows. Old 80s bands who aren't even close to their original lineups have also strangled the scene.
Absolutely.
Interesting to note that Rose Tattoo, for instance, can't sell out a pub show anymore. They were just here on the weekend.
I do know their figures, Rob, but I'm not about to spout that off because I'm a big fan of Angry. And
yeah, me too.
But I know the figures. There's quite a few of those bands. I know the figures. The ones that are holding up their end of the bargain is Screaming Jets. Now, the Screaming Jets came back 5 years ago and did remember the covers album they did of all Australian bands? And if you did, if anybody out there hasn't, have a listen to it because they did just fantastic versions of those songs. They picked the right ones. Triple M got behind them because, again, they represented those bands at Triple M play. It was a strike of genius by the band and their management. And it went crazy. They were back on the road. They were back and they can deliver. The other ones that can deliver on the road are the Sunny Boys. And the Sunny Boys do one kind of major tour a year and they pick two supports and two good supports that fit their genre and their age bracket. And they sell out wherever they go. And they usually do that one big show in every cap city and very smart about it. The other ones are, who are back with a vengeance are the Hoodoo Gurus who are just doing your theatres. They're doing their, 1,200 to 1,800s. Some of them can do it, but you've got to be so strategic and you have to think of it so difficult into the detail of how you're going to get it to happen. They're just some of the bands, but others have come back with one member and the rest are all just, sidekicks. And then they think, well, how come we didn't sell any tickets? I just have a chuckle about it because, well, it's not the original band. So that is a big issue with, they essentially become a tribute band. And that's
they do.
Yeah, and that's what they are. So, and of course, they may not be. There's the ice houses and whatever, but they will be taking up capacity at venues and essentially tribute bands. But the amount of tribute, I did look. Someone spoke to me last night about a member of a band who was going out, and I heard the word Fleetwood Mac, right? And I said, what is he? Because remember, Neil Finn played with Fleetwood Mac. So I had that in my mind and I said, oh, so is that member, did they ask him to play with Fleetwood Mac? And then they said, no, the tribute Fleetwood Mac.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I got to make myself a cup of tea. I've got better things to do.
Absolutely.
I'd gone back to this bloody tribute band. Fleetwood Mac tribute band, please. And this is what a lot of musicians are doing from, the original bands. But so I think we pull it back to where we started and that, we need to promote on a grassroots basis and from grassroots venues. So we need to give them support so these young bands can actually put on some professional shows, and hopefully it can viral out from there and we have a new set of artists. For the future, the amount of money that can bring into Australia is phenomenal. Just think AC/DC for the last 40 years, 50 years. So, we're as good as anybody in the world. We can deliver music to world standards, no doubt about that. Anyway, so that's a big issue on the horizon at the moment, and it will churn away. And the state government here in Victoria have said they're going to give grants of up to $50,000 for festivals and $10,000 for venues towards paying artist fees. So is that $50,000 one for what is that, one artist, or is that for the festival?
You know see who gets that money.
Yeah. So is it just $50,000, or if they got four, they might get $200,000 towards paying for the artist for that festival? I don't even know how that works. I don't know why you would do that. It's so uncommercial. It's a venture. If it was a non-for-profit, so for example, I don't know if it was non-for-profit. On the weekend here, they had the Sunbury 24, revisited, and they ran it in Sunbury, and the Hume Council, which is the council in that area, ran it. Now, I don't know, though, whether they were helping fund it with a commercial enterprise or whatever, but they sold out the tickets a month ago, 4,500 tickets. And all the artists playing, Joe Camilleri, Jeff Duff, Mike Rudd, Matt Lake. So, as I put us old farts, and that's who was playing, and it was the perfect audience for them, 4,500 tickets. That's just fantastic, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It'd be interesting to see the demographic of that crowd, because they obviously have disposable income to do that too.
Well, they marketed it to the right audience, and that says that the right festival can sell out. Why does it have to be 20,000 people or 10,000 people or whatever? That's usually because you've got to pay for that big international artist who's getting the big international dollars. Well, maybe all that can happen there, it goes back to, if they're big enough, they'll come and do a Margaret Court at 4,000 people, or a Rod Laver at 10,000, and that's where they do their shows, and they can't do the festivals because the festival can't afford it anyway. We just have to take stock and get realistic about the industry. Now, I was talking to you, Rob, earlier in the week about trying to promote Rob Boundy as the drummer. So to everybody out there, Rob, and we discussed it in the last episode, about Rob's sites and what Rob has done. We go through Rob's kind of career in his drumming and how he earns a living. We are going to get behind Rob to try and push an audience from around the world to his drumming site. We will keep everybody abreast of that over the coming month, say 2 months, because it takes about 2 months to get the whole thing going. And we're going to see if we can really push Rob's subscriber base on his YouTube channel.
Rob's Drum Shed.
Yeah, there you go, up into the thousands, so that Rob can monetize that site and can get the value out of him putting his tutorials and advice on drumming up there, because it takes a lot of time. I think you mentioned in the last episode, it can take you 5 to 10 hours to put a video together to get up there.
That's right. I mean, I've got 73 videos up there.
Well, just do the sums on that.
700 hours.
There you go. So, it is about living, and it's not just about love. It's about, trying to put bread on your table too, and that's really important. So we are going to champion that, Rob. Going forward, you're going to send me some clips, and we're going to put them up, and we're going to promote them like, no tomorrow. Okay?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how to say this politely, but I'm not a performing monkey. I'm not in it for that type of entertainment. I'm an educator and like the fundamentals of how to play drums to make a career out of it. So,
but I would say to you, it would be fictitious to you to say that you don't want to earn a living out of it. You do want to earn a living out of it.
Well, I earn a living out of it. I just don't earn a living out of it off of YouTube.
That's correct. And the quality of what's there should earn you some funds. I mean, it's just not some people, try and scare away from that, but that's what they want. I don't think you should. It's the work that goes into that and the reason it's there. It's there to help educate, and that education takes practice from you. And when everybody listens to this weekend's episode, you'll go through what Rob does on a daily basis to practice and to stay in shape, to be able to deliver his tutorials and his teaching and drumming related, live shows and whatever. That has to be paid for. He's not, we're not here suggesting you should be paid a fortune. You'd love it. But I'm just saying it should be paid for. I don't know what that figure is, but it should be paid for. Yep.
I think what the point I'm trying to make is everything is so extreme out there and in your face with a lot of drum videos and that. It's just, we get bombarded by these incredible players all the time that everyone expects everyone to be like that or they won't watch it. They've got an attention span of 35 seconds mostly. And I find that a little bit, I suppose, intimidating because I just don't do that. I will explain what I'm doing. I'll play through stuff, but I'm not doing it at a completely extreme level. So that's why it's hard to get through that barrier sometimes, I think.
I think there's a wealth of knowledge with you there, Rob, because there may be drummers that are fantastic drummers and that's all they do. So they might put things up and get 1 million views, but again, they may not. But all they do is drumming. So they'll do live shows and they'll might do some tutorials. They don't teach, do anything. And let's go through what Rob Bounty does. So you've got your doctorate, PhD from university. So there's some real knowledge base to music in general. We've got a year, your whole lifetime's worth of playing in live bands. And not necessarily any big bands as such, but still playing, and playing is playing. There is you're a tutor, teacher in drumming. You sell drums, so you know about what the latest kits are. I don't know what the latest kits are. I'm still dealing with Premier XP kits made in England. Well, they don't even make them anymore. So
Premier's gone.
Yeah. So if you go through that whole depth and breadth of what you do, there's a real knowledge base there.
Yes.
You'd agree, wouldn't you? There's a real knowledge base of the music and the technique of drumming and whatever. On top of that, you play other instruments, whether it be guitar or piano or whatever. So that just adds again. So there is a knowledge base there. We want to explore it. We want to get people in touch with it because you're putting out new stuff all the time. Now, of course, we're going to complement that with your new songs. There'll be old songs which are redone. That may be Virgin Soldiers, and there will be new songs which we discussed in the last episode too have gone to a producer, and you're looking at getting those finished in the coming months. Correct? Yeah? Yeah. So we're able to put this in place with, some new contemporary releases and whatever. And that will be interesting in itself because it does show your capacity to go across genres or, your technique from way back, because we've got old footage of you going right back and then new footage. So I find all that interesting, and I think what was interesting from your last discussions too, which you'll be able to listen to on Sunday, will be that how fit you needed to be and what Neil Peart did and what people like Virgil Donati do. And I've never thought of that and the injuries. And now that you brought that up, I have friends who are very experienced drummers and are still playing now, but have a lot of neck injuries and a lot of back injuries. And I'm going to talk to them about that and go, you're going to have to make sure you got the proper chairs, and the technique that you do is what can help there, because they're forever seeing physios and whatever.
Yeah, but there's a maintenance program that you have to do on a daily basis.
And it's really important
to strengthen those areas that are pounded, day and day.
And I bet you a lot of people don't even consider that. I've never considered it. So there's a lot there. So I think people will find that interesting. I think we've kept it to our 35, 40 minutes that we wanted to instead of going over an hour, Rob.
And it's creative.
Anyway, all right, till next week, Rob. I'll talk to you then, and we can see what's come up on the radar in the next 7 days, all right?
Perfect.
Good talking
Thank
to you,
you.
Rob.
You too, mate. Always.
All right, bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Well, there you have it, another Laneway Talks. If you enjoyed that, just search Laneway Talks for more great conversations.